welcome to Brian for Liberty. I thank you for stopping by here. I hope you'll take a minute to like, share, and subscribe to the content if you haven't done so already. I've been watching my subscriber. I've grown to 146. I'm super excited about that. I know I'm going to get to 150 this week. And I just want to thank everyone who takes the time to watch my videos and to subscribe to the channel. And certainly, if you really want to help me grow, absolutely share the content if you like it. As exhausted as we all are, I am going to be talking about Black Lives Matter. Because I think the voices of opposition are being drowned out. And I think that it's a conversation we need to keep having. Because like most Americans, I am truly bothered by the fact that there's a large group of us, of minorities, of people of color throughout this country who are starting to feel disenfranchised. And they're being told that the country doesn't love them, the country doesn't embrace them. And they're feeling like more and more marginalized as the Black Lives Matter movement continues to dominate the headlines. And so I look at it as if we feel like as if we don't belong and we don't feel like this nation offers us opportunities, then how are we ever going to continue to move forward and to elevate and become more and more active participants in this great American economy? And how are we going to keep our communities safe when Black Lives Matter keeps telling us that the people who are sworn to protect us can't be trusted? I have a genuine issue with Black Lives Matter. I think Black Lives Matter as a movement is incredibly problematic. And a lot of people will say they have a problem with Black Lives Matter as an organization. I have a problem with Black Lives Matter as a movement. And I generally don't believe that a lot of the people involved in Black Lives Matter actually care about helping Black people. I think the proof is in the pudding. I think that they have failed to put their money where their mouth is. I feel like they are massively wasting resources. And so because of that, I have been an outspoken opponent, let's say, of the movement and the organization of Black Lives Matter. And I'm going to break this down for you as the video goes on. But Black Lives Matter has an incredible amount of power in this country today and has raised millions of dollars. Now, I just did a video last week about an organization called MASK, Mothers Against Senseless Killing. They're based out of Chicago. And I look at what they've accomplished. They have fed the poor in their communities. They have reduced violent crime on their block. They have actually built a school. And in the face of COVID-19, they actually raised money and started creating the ability for distance learning for people who may have been in need, not able to provide that for themselves. So they have done a lot. You can point to concrete things that they have accomplished, things that they have done, and say, this is what this organization has accomplished. When I look at Black Lives Matter and I look at the thousands of people protesting for them all across the country, the literally millions of dollars that they've raised, and I say, what have they done? Certainly, there's nothing in proportion to the money and the manpower that they have at their disposal. They're protesting daily against institutional racism and state-sanctioned violence against people of color. And with all the money and the manpower, there's nothing we can point to. There's nothing we can say this is what they've accomplished. So I have a real problem with that. And I have a real problem with these Black Lives Matter protests. And when we look at what's going on in the country, we have COVID-19 in our faces. We have mass unemployment. And you're looking at homicide rates in major cities all across the country exploding compared to same period last year. And is this the time that we should be pushing police out of the cities? In addition to that, we have to take a look at the damage done. The results seem to speak for itself. Stories and articles have been done about Black-owned businesses destroyed in riots. And of course, the most sobering is the number of Black lives lost in protests and riots nationwide. Where is Black Lives Matter leadership on this? Are they condemning the violence? Nope. In light of the damage to minority businesses, are they creating funds to help Black-owned businesses reopen and repair the damages left in the wake of these protests? No. Did they even suggest a halt to demonstrations, or maybe just suggest that peaceful protests should maybe end a little earlier in the day so that these antagonists who are starting the violence can't co-opt their movement and create this kind of chaos? They are not fighting against the spread of the violence. Is that helping Black people? Is the violence across the country or the riots, is that creating greater sympathy for the movement? Once again, no, it's not. So we have to talk about these things. And they're not doing anything. An organization that is dedicated to the well-being and elevation of the Black community would be doing all of these things. They are doing none of them. So the protests seem to be their main purpose. The protests are the mission of Black Lives Matter. It's not the elevation of Black people. It's not ending police brutality. It is simply protesting. They want to protest, they want to defund the police, and they want to tear down statues. That's their goal because that's all they're accomplishing. These people aren't trying to feed the poor in the inner city. These people aren't trying to mentor kids in single parent homes. These people aren't trying to build schools. This is nothing for the people in need, the people that they are using as a prop for their movement. It's pretty easy to see that they don't care. They're not trying to help, or they would be. They have the resources and the manpower and the momentum right now to institute massive positive change in the black community, and they're not doing it. So they are selling the idea of systemic racism, institutionalized racism. Our entire nation is founded on racism, and all of its systems are hopelessly infected and need to be torn down and rebuilt. This all started as a protest against police brutality and state-sanctioned violence against blacks. That was the start of this movement. That was their purpose. Black Lives Matter has since transformed itself into an anti-American movement whose Marxist roots are becoming incredibly clear to the people who are watching, not the indoctrinated out there carrying signs, but the people who are watching this from a distance can clearly see what's going on. To the people who are indoctrinated, you can't even have a conversation. You're not allowed to talk about it, and you're not allowed to talk about their flaws. And if you do, you're going to get shouted down as a racist. I've been called an Uncle Tom. I've been called a sellout because I don't support the movement. My voice doesn't matter. That's really sad. And how do we can't dare to question them, the necessity of their movement. But let's talk about police violence against blacks for a second, specifically black deaths at the hands of police. I looked at the numbers from 2018. Those were the most accurate numbers I could find and most thorough. And there were 209 police shootings resulting in the death of a black person. Now, let's assume that every single one of those was an unjustified homicide, even though we know that's not the case. Let's just take that assumption. And now let's look at the overall homicide rate. In 2018, 2,925 African Americans were murdered, and 2,600 of those came at the hands of fellow African Americans. Now, if we take just the 2,600 black on black murders, in 2018, 92% of black homicides came at the hands of blacks, and 8%, assuming every single police shooting was an unjustified homicide, 8% came at the hands of the police. And Black Lives Matter does not want to hear about that. They don't want to talk about it. They want to discuss it. They will shout you down if you bring it up. And so will their supporters. And I'll tell you, when we say the organization is flawed, not the movement, I say no, the movement is flawed as well because they don't want to talk about those issues. If you care about Black lives, then you want to have that conversation. When people respond to Black Lives Matter and say something like all lives matter, we hear the analogy all the time, right? Oh, well, that's like saying if your neighbor's house catches on fire and the fire department comes and they start putting out your neighbor's fire, you run out there and you say all homes matter because they're ignoring your home. But that's exactly what Black Lives Matter is doing. They're taking this tiny percentage of black deaths and making that the key issue, and they're ignoring what else is going on in the black community. If the house is on fire, they're changing the curtains and they're vacuuming the floors. They're not putting the fire out either. We know that the disproportional representation of homicides and the disproportionate representation of blacks when it comes to violent crime is the reason that these neighborhoods are being over-policed. We know that's the case. It's the reason we have so many police on the street. It's the reason that this is happening, and we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to talk about the source. 88% of homicides against blacks were committed by blacks in 2018. That's the number. 8% were committed by police, assuming all police shootings were completely unjustified. 8%. If all police shootings were unjustified, we know that's not the case. There were 6,570 homicides, and what percentage of that was committed by African Americans? 48%. 48% of homicides where we know the race of the offender were committed by about 13% of the population. And of that 13% of the population, 44% of all homicide victims were black. 13% of the population, 44% of homicide victims, 88% of them at the hands of other blacks. We aren't allowed to talk about that. Black Lives Matter will shout that down. Their supporters will shout that down. You don't get to call yourselves Black Lives Matter. You don't get to say that you care about black lives and ignore that. Not just ignore it, but refuse to address it and shout down as a racist anybody who brings it up. Shameful. Shameful. The bottom line is Black Lives Matter, not just the organization, but the movement itself is deeply flawed. It's been said, it's been studied, and it's been proven. Fatherless homes are the true epidemic in the black community today. We know the numbers, and we don't want to talk about that either. That's a massive disservice to the black community, and quite frankly, it's cowardly. Black Lives Matter has the resources, manpower, and momentum to truly work to elevate the black community. Instead, they're vilifying police, they're shouting down any attempt to discuss real issues in the black community, and they're fleecing millions of dollars out of the misguided people who have been bought into their propaganda. It needs to end, and the people need to stop being afraid of speaking out. As an American, the fact that entire groups of people feel disenfranchised in this country is incredibly sad to me. America is for everyone, and we need to make sure everyone knows that regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, and economic background, there's an opportunity here for everyone, and everyone needs to know that. We have to address the issues facing the black community so they can be better equipped, so that young black people are better equipped to enter the economy and participate in it. That's what needs to happen. That's the powerful movement we need to initiate positive change. But if you do that, it's not a political movement anymore. And you're not going to influence voters by doing that. And that's why nobody's listening. This is a propaganda machine. Black Lives Matter is a propaganda machine. Black people are being used by the movement as props. It's terrible. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe how. This is the re-victimization of Black America. This movement is the re-victimization of Black America. And I think it's terrible. And I think more people need to speak out against it. We can't sit back and be afraid of cancel culture. We got to speak out. We've got to talk about it. So I just wanted to get that out. I'm going to probably talk about Black Lives Matter once or twice a week until this thing dies down. I'm trying to do a video every day, Monday through Friday. I'm going to try and keep up that schedule. I want to thank you all for stopping by and taking time to watch the video. I hope you like and share the content. Please take a second to subscribe. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss an episode. I am still working out the details on what I want to do on my Sunday show. I'm hoping to go live this Sunday and discuss chapters 5 and 6 of Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics. And I'm trying to do all these different things like add chats and all that. As you can see, I have a very young YouTube channel. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm trying to add and do. I am a one-man operation. So I'm writing, editing, trying to get a video up every day. And I'm also trying to get organized and do a live show on Sundays. So turn on the notifications and follow along so you don't miss an episode. Hopefully I'll have chats going and we can have some kind of a back and forth discussion regarding basic economics. So once again, as I always say, thank you very much for stopping by. And as always, we will see you next time.